Well, I would like to use this design to illustrate a situation where you might find the use of transparency in plant symbols quite useful. This is a design for a revegetation project for a local school. Let's go into layout and I'll zoom out just a little. The plan calls for revegetating this embankment here and uses a host of native species, and there's an intent to involve the children at the school in the revegetation process. Let's go back to the model. So in order to aid in the planting, we've set up a grid over the planting plan, a 5 metre by 5 metre grid, and that will enable accurate or reasonably accurate planting. And you should be able to see, I think, that a number of the symbols here have transparency applied. So if we select this one and go into edit a block, and I pick the circle, it's a filled circle, so it's a simple shape. It has a border. The border colour is set at 253 and the transparency is set at 100. Let's close the block editor. We have two main layers in this design, a trees and shrubs layer and an understory layer. So let's turn off the understory layer for the moment, which is called ground cover and grass, and you'll see the planting that was at the edge and under these higher level or upper canopy plants disappears. So of course we want to show both levels simultaneously, and if we turn on the trees and shrubs layer, which of course is concentrated on that band through here, with one or two exceptions that come down in this direction, and maybe the designer, when seeing it in this form, might want to change that. But what I want to illustrate is that because these symbols for upper story have had transparency associated with them, we can see the whole planting program at once. So now both the trees and understory planting are all showing, and with transparency we can actually see through the upper canopy and see the lower level planting. If you click view and click on this transparent render option, you can see if we had just relied on a fill, it obliterates all of the understory planting. All we can see is just that little zone through there. So it's quite a handy switch to be able to switch from one to the other. We have a little layer for dimensions on here, and if we now go into the layout tab and zoom extents, there's our planting program. Now you might add, or you might wish to say in this particular layout, and remembering that it's possible to select a viewport, and I'll hold my shift key down and deselect the rectangle that I've got around here with a curve on the corner, and that's a floating viewport. What we can now do is go close in to the edge of the floating viewport and right click at that point there and click on viewport layers, and up pops this little box, and just for this layout only we can turn off the dimension layer, and I'll unselect all, and I think you could see the layer disappear. Now I'd be inclined, I think, to produce a layout sheet which had three views, the view that you see here, and I'd be inclined to produce a view for upper story planting and another view for lower story planting. So we might head off and do that. You might want to leave a layout such as this populated with a lot of examples of the species that are going to be used in the design, and views of the site, of course, are extremely useful. Well, I've now set up a sheet with 3 floating viewports. Let me just select them with a crossing window through here. 3 floating viewports, and in the top one we've got both layers, the upper and lower story, turned on. The middle one has just the upper story turned on, and the lower one has the understory on. We can ring the changes with turning our grid on, and that overlays things and is handy for the planting program. I go to view again and transparent render. You might even decide to dispense with the combination one and just run with the upper story and lower story, but that's for you as a designer. Let's pop this one back on, and the key issue now is to print, and this is where File and Save As PDF comes into play. So it's File and Save As PDF. If we try to print it as it stands with the conventional PDF writers, the writer would likely take forever to print, and transparency would not show. So if you want to use this technique, this is when our Save As PDF command works a treat. Well, I've switched to another layout sheet, this time in portrait view, and put the 3 different floating viewports on the one page, and with a canopy and understory at the top, both layers are on. In the middle panel we're just looking at the canopy, and here we're looking at the understory only. So if I zoom extents and go File and Save As, I'll pick Window and I'll choose High Resolution, and I'll just put a box around the page, and we'll overwrite the existing one. And here's the result. Let's go full screen. So here's our canopy and understory both on, and as we move down we can look just at the canopy planting, and then we can look at just the understory planting. And of course we could turn on the grid and play and generate whatever we want, but the important point is we are seeing translucency, if you like, transparency in the upper canopy, and we can see the understory planting, which of course is clustered near the edges and relatively little in the middle, and the higher and taller plants, higher canopy, taller plants running through the mid zone. So we have used Save As PDF.